Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. So welcome to the second class of developing your human divine being. And we're going to be speaking about co-creation tonight. How's it going?
Okay, so as we've talked before several times, all of creation began with divine desire or impulse for the divine being to know itself, to love itself, to have something to love and be loved by. And we've talked about that metaphor, the divine central sun of each of our souls being a ray that goes through all the levels of manifestation and where we are from our vantage point, our frame of reference, or you could say our operating system. And this whole series is about becoming a human divine being. So we're going to be looking at, well, what does that require? What is involved in that? What is involved in becoming a human divine co-creator, bringing something forth? Usually when we think about creation, we think about something that we're going to bring into the physical environment, whether it's a work of art, a composition of music, a poem, something that we do, something that we make, something that we can experience with the five senses. And the type of creation we're going to be talking about is a creation that comes forth in a transformed world. And as we've said before, this transformed world doesn't exist any place other than the world that we live in. But the problem is the world that we live in is constricted, that because of our consciousness, because of our identification with the experiences of the senses and our thoughts and our emotions and so on, we've come to believe, and don't even question it as a belief. We think this is a reality, that this is all that there is. This is where things happen in the physical world. But there is a reality that is opened when we can come to this meeting place that we've talked about before, the Barzakh, the interface between the human and divine, or the manifest and transcendent parts of our being. Something comes forth from that way of connecting. So there's different ways we could look at that. We could think of it in terms of, well, the divine is way up there somewhere and I'm down here, and perhaps I can get a little bit closer and then at least experience something of the divine. But in a way, I'll use an analogy like the spark plugs on a car. In the spark plug, there has to be a gap. If there's no gap, your engine's not going to start. But if the gap's too big, it's not going to start either. There's got to be a space for that spark to take place. So there has to be a space, however small, between the two sides. Otherwise, what would happen? Well, what would happen is sometimes thought of as the goal of spirituality, a dissolving or a dissolution of the personal or human identity into the divine, however that's thought of in different traditions. It could be the void, it could be nirvana, it could be the highest samadhi. It's given many, many different names, but this side is dissolved, and it's thought that that's the point, just to go back. Well, if that's what happens, then from the way the Sufis look at it, the divine desire never gets to be fulfilled. So if the divine is seeking to know him herself in a way that can only take place through the relationship with beings in manifestation, such as us, then if there's no relationship, then that fulfillment can't take place. And similarly, no creation can take place. Nothing can emerge from the way that original divine desire has been transformed by our experiences in life, what we bring back to that meeting place. And it takes both sides to bring forth something that neither side could bring forth on its own. So this is not the way we probably usually think about things. We, have terms, well, God is omnipotent, all powerful. Of course, God could just zap and bring something into existence. Well, as the Sufis say, God cannot incarnate in manifestation, but we can awaken to our divine expression of divinity in life. And there's a difference there. So that creation that occurs has to involve both sides. So just pause and think about that for a second or two. You are an essential part for the fulfillment of the divine being. Your life, your being, the expression of all that comes through you is essential for, on one side of things, just fulfilling what we think of as our purpose in life for being here. But much more than that, that's what's required to fulfill the divine's purpose in there being a you, a unique you. Why are there so many unique things in the world? Why didn't the divine, if you have a factory, be much more efficient just to churn out copies of the same thing? Well, life doesn't work like that. Life is moving towards greater diversity and evolution of all the different forms and so on. So as we've also talked about before, that which makes you unique means that there, and Ibn Arabi has said, as I've mentioned before, that there is an access to the divine wisdom that you have that no other being ever has had or can have. And for that to be manifest through you is bringing something not only to yourself, because initially we think of, most of us, I'm undertaking the spiritual path. Why? I want to be awakened. I want to be enlightened. I want to be illuminated. Something's happening to you that you want to get to a higher state of being. Well, there's nothing wrong with thinking like that, although it's much more than that. And at a certain point, you probably realize, well, I thought it was all about me getting to a certain state, but actually it's participating in the never-ending process of the divine being awakening to itself in existence, that each of us has an essential part to play. So again, let's just pause for a moment and let that sink in. Whether you know what it is or you think you know what it is that unique purpose for you being here, or that unique wisdom that can come through you, it's there, and your life is always giving you clues as to what it is. So just pause for a moment and hold an intention that I would like to open to that process of fulfillment of my reason for being here and the divine's reason for having created my being in the first place.
I want to say that this is what Hazrat is asking us to do, is really like a mini fana, or an occultation of our being, leaving a space, leaving an opening for this new way of looking at things. Rather than grasping or reaching or squeezing somehow, it's a relaxing and an opening, an occultation, they call it.
And in future classes, we're going to probably have a whole class on constriction. And I'll just give you a tiny sneak preview of that. You probably think of constriction. Oh, I don't want that. That's being kind of just squeezed in. But actually, constriction means being brought to a focus. So an example would be, if you're looking under a microscope, and you're turning the dials until you get it to that right place of focus, the reality of what you're wanting to look at doesn't open up to you. It's not revealed to you. Or if you have a laser focalizes a particular frequency of light that can be used for all sorts of things. It can be used for healing. It can be used for discovery of different kinds of things. And if everything were just infinite, like we usually think of the divine being as infinite, boundless, indescribable, well, if there's nothing to focalize, if there's nothing to bring that into focus, then there's no possibility for that wisdom to be revealed. That's the reason why the creation took place in the first place. And Pure Vilayat would say our being is like a cone that is infinite at the top and then narrows down into our physical form at the bottom, and we're the whole cone. But we can't be conscious of all that. We can't be conscious of the infinite. We can't take it all in, but we can increase our scope of consciousness, the Sufis say our realm, our awakening, as we've talked about, and we'll continue to talk about, to the multiple dimensions of our being on which we already exist, but they're usually dormant or latent because we're not aware of them and we haven't figured out how to access them. But the more we can do that, the more that we can bring to this meeting place, and then in that co-creative process, the more that's able to come through. So I'd like to just mention a practice that we've done before, and we're not going to do it tonight, but you may recall we've done the practice Mawjud, M-A-W-J-U-D, which means making God a reality. And we usually think of that as making God a reality in life, in the world that we are familiar with. And that's great. But in the deeper sense of what this is about, we can think of Mawjud as what arises through this human divine co-creative process, what is brought forth that couldn't have come from either end. And where is it brought forth? Well, it's brought forth into that transformed, opened up reality that's much richer than the reality that we usually are able to experience by virtue of kind of the boundaries that we not even intentionally set on our consciousness, that filter out so much of who we are and cause us to believe that we're all that we perceive through that. Okay. So this previous series were about birthing the resurrection body and living in the resurrection body, and this one's about becoming a human divine being. So we could say being in the resurrection body means we have enabled the fulfillment of the reason for existence to continually take place, that we are at every instant of new creation bringing about a tangible expression of the fulfillment of that desire that comes through, that it's brought forth and it's opened up into the reality. Sometimes we call this the world of the soul. And in this world of the soul, it's like everything is an expression of ourself or a reflection of ourself. Or another way of thinking about that is everything is an expression of the divine face, but in many different ways and forms. And so it's in that state of being in the resurrection body, we are one face of the divine experiencing all the other faces of the divine that come through all the different names and forms. And so it's like the world in which the divine is awakened to itself through every experience, the world in which everything is revealing itself. We've talked about before of the idea of everything being Gabriel. Everything is announcing itself. And before that happens, everything is longing to announce itself. Everything wants this unique expression of divinity to be brought forth and to be able to be experienced by all the rest of the divine being. We'll just try that idea on for size and just see what happens with that. I just get a really rough.
Say it a little
more. Okay. Just close your eyes And imagine now you are in a state of your human divine being. You are in your resurrection body, and you are living in a world in which everything is announcing its divinity to everything else, including you. And there's just this no end to the lights upon the lights upon the lights, and the presences that arise from those lights, and the furtherance of the wisdom that occurs through the infinite permutations and combinations of the different names and forms reflecting their divinity onto each other. So just use that as a launching pad and try it on for a bit. And as you go through your day, every now and then, when you can stop the other things that are going on and just take a few moments and see what it's like to experience whatever it is that you're experiencing, whatever it is that's around you. You could be stopped at a traffic light. You could be walking in nature. You could be interacting with another person, and just imagine, try and emphasize the image using your creative faculty of imagination that you do live, always have, always will live in this world in which it's the divine, looking at the divine, reflecting upon the divine, transforming the divine, delighting in the divine. Everything is delighting in itself through all the different ways of being. And everything is savoring the uniqueness of who you are as you savor the uniqueness of everything that everything else is. So I'd like for us to share a practice, and I think we've done this one before, but before I do the practice, Ravani Ra and I have these conversations during the week talking about the next class and so on, and we always come up with enough that would last for many more classes than we have time for. But when we were talking about this one, talking about the divine creative process, I had the thought, well, this is kind of like we're going to introduce all the people that are in this group. We're going to show them what the dessert for the meal is. We're going to bring out this incredible dessert. And then we're going to talk some about, in this particular class here, some of the steps required to be able to partake of this dessert and to be able to prepare this dessert for others. Mm-hmm. And so there's some necessary ingredients, like any recipe. There's some necessary processes to master. And one of the processes to master, there's different steps. And I'm going to talk a little bit about with this practice, but then we're going to have an interlude for discussion, and then Ravani Ra is going to go into some detail about a process. There has to be a major shift in our way of thinking and experiencing and relating. And we will come back to this many times because it's extremely important. And the major shift is moving away from a dualistic way of experiencing, including a dualistic way of experiencing what we think of as the divine, to one which we call relational unity, in which there is circulation, there is permeability, there's a maintaining of identity, and yet everything is simultaneously affecting everything else. Well, we may not be able just to jump into that, so there's a prior step to that. Pierre Pelayo would call it toggling. He would call it, you experience kind of one side of the picture and then the other side, and you go back and forth. And then at a certain point, after you become proficient with that, you just dive in and you get it. You get what it's about. you're able to experience what we're trying to convey here. And it's no longer toggling, you are now engaged in a much fuller and deeper way of relationship. So we're going to do a kind of toggling between two different levels on which we have our existence, the manifest physical level and the angelic level. Hazrat Inayat Khan says that our angelic being is much bigger than our physical being. It's much vaster. We usually think of these inner levels being something inside of our physical body, but actually they're all right here. As we've said, they're different vibrational states, but our angelic self is much vaster than our physical self. And just like within our body, there's a circulation of blood through all the parts of the body, and all the other things going on with our nervous system and hormones and so on. And we're not conscious of them, but nevertheless, they're going on. And all the parts are communicating with all the other parts all of the time. But we're not used to thinking that way. So we think of, well, the first A and then B and then C. So let's just take an assumption that we are angelic beings. We do have an angelic existence, and we don't need to take it as an assumption, because we know we are also physical beings in manifestation. But let's assume that there is a circulation between these different levels. In the fullness of who we are, existing on all these different levels, there has to be a circulation of different forms of light throughout all the levels, or there wouldn't be the life of the soul. Okay, so this is a practice we've worked with before, but let's really kind of highlight this circulation aspect. And we're going to put a couple of divine names with this, and we're going to do it in the form of the zikr. And as you may recall, we start with the head of the left shoulder, down, right shoulder, and up, and then down to the solar plexus, and up to the heart. And the first part of the zikr, we're going to say Ya. Remember, Ya is invoking the quality, and Munawwir, Munawwir, Munawwir. Munawwir literally means the lamp, but it means the light of the aura. So what we want to feel on this is, as the head is going in the 3/4 of the circle and we say Ya, Munawwir, we're surveying our aura, the light field that surrounds us, that changes in response to our mood and our health and so on, but it's the subtle light body around our physical body that some people can see. So it's Ya, Munawwir. And then when the head is up, imagine you're tapping in to the experience of yourself in the angelic realm. It's described as a realm of uncreated light, all-pervading light, light without a point source. And the practice is Ya Nur, N-U-R, Nur. And when we say Ya Nur, and actually we're going to not do the Ya with this because it works better. We're going to say Munawwir. And then as the head goes down, Nur. And when you say Nur, imagine there's a beam of light going from your third eye to your solar plexus. And here's the light upon the light. We're striking the light of the aura with this heavenly light and infusing our aura with this more subtle form of light, the light of the angelic realm. And as we do that, our aura is transformed. It's been illuminated by this celestial light. But then when we do the next repetition, surveying the aura Munawwir, our aura has been changed by that celestial light. So the aura is not the same this repetition as it was the last time. And when we brought the head up each time, we're returning the light to the angelic realm, and we're bringing about a transformation there. So that the next time we say Nur, that celestial light itself has been enriched. So now what we bring to our aura has been transformed. So this is the process of just really getting into this flow of the effect of the celestial light on the aura and the effect on the returning light on the celestial light. And each time both sides are enriched, and it's different from the last time. So let's try this together. I'll do it first and join with me. Munawwir on the 3/4 of a circle, Nur, as the head goes down and up like this. Munawwir, Nur. And then you just pause. Manaur. Noor. So join with me. Really feel this. Manaur. Noor. 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 Once more. Manaur. Noor. And then silently on the breath, think Manaur as you exhale, and the head goes in the 3/4 of a circle. Think Noor as the head goes down and up as you inhale. Then briefly hold your breath and then do it again. So exhale as you think Manaur. Inhale on Noor down and keep inhaling up. And do this at your own rate a few times. And then pause, and without the words, without the thought, just feel this ongoing interchange between the celestial and the manifest aspects of yourself, that at first is experienced as a back and forth, but after a while you may just experience it as that both sides are continually infused with the other, transforming the other. Amen. Go ahead.
I'd like to begin our second half with a quote from the Quran. It says, "Have me present to your heart, I shall have you present to myself." And these are the words of God. Let me say it again. "Have me present to your heart, I shall have you present to myself." So this is a good beginning of what we're working with, as it could be called different things here. One title might be Theophonic Prayer. Theo, T-H-E-O, meaning God. Phonic, P-H-A-N-I-C, meaning epiphany or bursting forth. So theophany is the idea of God bursting forth into manifestation in many different kinds of ways. And this is theophonic prayer. So it is an opportunity to enable the divine to enter more fully into life, into a manifestation through our own being. This also is called Munajat, M-U-N-A-J-A-T, and that means intimate dialogue. So it is an interfacing of the divine and the manifest. And in our case, we'll be speaking about, usually thinking about us as the manifest, and God or the divine side of our being as the divine. Let's see. So it is an opportunity of creation, really. It's really like our lab. Here's our inner lab that you can take with you and use as you do your meditation practices. You can call it also the high point of imagination, an opportunity to use that imagination in the way that we have described before as the royal or the true imagination, that imagination that doesn't try to cook up something and pull something out of a hat, but more like what we said, that word I used earlier, occultation, to leave a space for something to be manifest. And this is occasioned, in this case, by a sharing of roles between you and the divine, in that who is the creator and who is the created. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a play here of one and then the other, and thinking about, well, who really began this process and who really is the creator in this process. So I'm hoping for some flexibility on your parts to think about things in different types of ways. Let's see, I want to say a couple more things. It's also called, I guess I said intimate dialogue, and it's a secret prayer of the lover and beloved. So this is getting to a deep place of, on the very edge of manifesting, like really potential, you could think of it as. We're just listening about God wanting to bring forth all that is potential. And for us to kind of step forward and say, okay, I will be your partner in this manifestation. I can be here for you, and I will see you. So this is an opportunity to not only talk about this, but actually be present to the divine in a very intimate kind of way. So this is God and his faithful, both in, and here's another wonderful word, coincidentia oppositorium. Coincidentia means coinciding or being at the same time. And then oppositorium means opposites. So this again is an occasion of the opposites of the divine and the manifest communicating in an intimate way. So here we are. Okay, also, who are we? We are the first and the last. We're going to be changing, sharing roles, one of them being the first, one of them being the last. And sometimes we'll think of God as the first and us as the last. Sometimes we'll think of God as the last and us as the first. And then two other roles we're going to mix are the hidden and the revealed. We usually think of God as the hidden in that cloud of unbeing, and then we think of us as the revealed in the manifest world. But it could be the other way around. Why would we try to do this? Why would we try to share roles? We want to get to this dynamism, a dynamism going that pulls upon all of these possibilities, that creates a dynamic that, like what is in all of creation, everything is in change and in transformation. And this will be a way to break through some of those hard places in us, in our thinking, to open up to the possibilities. Okay, I love this part of, and I want to say that this is coming from the Alone with the Alone by Henry Corbin, which is the work of Ibn Arabi. This is the kind of book you can read for 30 years and get something different every time. Some of you know what I mean. I need a drink for a minute, just a sec. Okay, and here's a very beautiful description of what this process might feel like to you. Let's see. I think this is from Ibn Arabi. He said, "The freshness of my eyes has been placed for me in prayer." The freshness of my eyes has been placed for me in prayer. It's like we get a hardened look on our faces. We get a hardened mask in life. Not the ones we have to wear, but the faces themselves can get hardened. And this is an opportunity to bring that freshness back to your eyes so that you see things in that new and becoming way. So we're going to take a look at that possibility of change, of sharing the roles. So here's a statement that is often the way we see things. And one more term is the Musalli, Musalli, and that means the one who prays in the Islamic tradition. Okay, so this is when we are acting as the Misali, the one who prays. Then the term the last applies to us because we are for God those whom he manifests, because he's the hidden treasure, as you were talking about, that has wished to be known, to know himself in beings. He precedes us, so he is first. So here we are in this situation where most of us think about it, that we are the ones praying, and the one who is, and that we are the manifest, and God is the hidden treasure. So God is the hidden, and he precedes us, and so is first. So that's probably familiar to most of us. But here's the one that changes everything. Think of it this way now. When God is the Musali, he who prays, then he comes last. His manifestation depends upon the existence of the faithful, of you, to whom and for whom he is the last. The God whom the faithful creates in his heart. So think of that sentence there, that this God is the one that the faithful creates in his heart. So how about a responsibility there for the continued opportunity, this heart holding the divine, and in a very intimate discussion and an opening to this divine, seeing what can be next. In this case, the first, the hidden, is the faithful. So let me speak a little bit more about this through Ibn Arabi's words. It is the beings whom the hidden treasure manifests into existence, us, from the world of mystery, who manifest God in the multiple forms of belief, in the infinite multiplicity of the divine names. So here's a new idea that it is the hidden who is also the manifested, and it is the first who is also the last. So what does this mean to us then? You heard Azarbash already speaking about that we are the ones in manifestation that have the point of view that the divine doesn't have, that can see from another vantage point. And what a gift that is to be able to share that with the divine. Well, we have to have a relationship with the divine then. We have to, claim that relationship instead of some kind of being way up in the sky somewhere. We have to be able to have a discussion with God and also share those inner experiences and feelings with God. So here's an opportunity for us to do that. So in this prayer that we're about to engage in, we're going to be, there'll be 3 different parts of it. We are going to be sitting and imagining, there's no words to it, there's just the breathing. And in the first part, we're going to be imagining the divine before us. We're going to be present to the divine. And, you know, there was a question before about, well, I might not be able to exactly see this. Well, this definitely is something that we're going to continue working with. This is really a training of the creative imagination in order to enter into this process. Not only are we going to want to be in touch with the divine in this practice, we're going to want to be in touch with the divine in our entire lives. But this will be a kind of little microcosm in which we can work with it, work on it. So in the first part, you might be thinking, am I just inventing this image of God that I'm seeing here? This is, you know, you don't want to be in just taking some action figure that you've seen or something like that and saying there's God. Well, from what even Arby says, that you cannot pick the wrong one. You cannot imagine the wrong one, because that one who you are have come from is the one that you will be imagining. Well, you know, we could try to trick ourselves and say, well, no, I can imagine Superman or something, and I can go, well, no, okay, you're trying to just be funny about it, but so how are you going to know? Well, this is an action within your heart. So let's be clear about what we're doing here. We're going to dwell in the heart in this practice. And it's almost like we're interviewing a little bit of, well, who is it what image am I wanting to bring to in front of me? Maybe I think of a baby, you know, Christ child kind of, and wow, that brings up something in me. I feel something there. Okay, so feel how your heart feels when you are seeing this image. You might have it right immediately, the idea of who you want to be thinking of. I'm thinking of Shostra and many of his characters in his operas even. He might be interviewing for this. But it will be, and it may change from day to day, who it is, who this vision is. But you are the one to decide based on what is emerging in you. I have to tell you, I worked with this yesterday. Actually, I guess it was very early this morning, about 2 in the morning when I got up to do some of this. And when I went to sleep, I had a vision of what beautiful woman. She was a bride, and she was dressed in these colorful layer upon layer of gowns. And she was so sweet and young and intimate with me. And I woke up thinking, what in the world? And I'm feeling like that was an image that is very close to me right now. So you will be the one to decide. And you can begin, like Azarbash was saying, you know, just start and see what feels like. Here I feel an intimate dialogue with this being, and this is where I want to start. So you would do that. You would sit or stand and see this being face to face with you. And the first step is just to be present with the divine. And as you're with the divine, you're feeling that all of you is concentrating on being here. You're not letting other thoughts come in, but all of you is focusing right here with the divine. And the first thing is we'll just breathe. Breathe, feeling, sometimes you could even feel like you're breathing the breath of the divine. And as you exhale, the divine is breathing your breath, that you're sharing breath. And the second step would be to be able to possibly hear the words of the divine, or the sound of the breathing, or some kind of, bring your hearing into this relationship. And the third would be to actually open into intuitive vision. So this would mean that you're really allowing total involvement in which you can have true communication. Your imagination, again, you're working with this day by day as you work and allow the imagination to be sensitive to what it is that is being transmitted, leaving enough that your hope, your desire, your ardent desire is reaching for something between you until some kind of dialogue comes. You might feel like writing something down. You might feel like just basking in this beautiful energy that is flowing between you. So it is a wonderful opportunity for you. So I would like us to have an opportunity right now to freshen our eyes and our hearts. So let's go ahead and sit and close our eyes. The first step is to feel that, see that form of the divine in front of us. And be sensitive to your heart. And as we were saying before, you do the best you can. And sometimes I say that you're putting energy into your bank account. You're just investing in this experience, being here with the divine. So readjusting and feeling, how does your heart feel? What do you see? Relaxing and occultation, as they say, that we're able to relax some of that materialization of our being, and open, make ourselves vulnerable. And opening out into hearing. So we feel a kind of circulation. You might feel that you're sharing something with the divine that you're so wanting to share, even in terms of words or energy. And the sound could be you saying something to the divine. or you hear something. Stay in tune with your heart. And now opening out into using an intuitive vision of something. There's an opportunity for that. It could be what it is that God is communicating with you, or you with God. And they say it could be opening to the vibration going through all of existence. And if possible, you're feeling like really all of this is happening within your own heart. This is a good place for it to happen, sheltered in that beautiful heart that is really larger than all of existence. And we're going to finish this right now, but it can be used later. This is a beginning for you. And we'll just finish with feeling thanksgiving, feeling gratitude for this opportunity. And taking a few breaths. And perhaps even feeling like the divine will not be leaving, but just maybe in a invisible form, not far away at all. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So this is a passage I'd like to share with you that seems very much relevant to what we've been talking about tonight. This is from Henry Corbin. The aspect of intimate union defined as the situation which will result according to Suhrawardi, and he was one of the Ishraqis, the
philosopher of light.
Yeah, from the relationship to be established between the Holy Spirit, the angel of humanity, and the perfect nature of each person of light. Whether it is referred to as the divine being or as the archetype angel, no sooner does its apparition reveal the transcendent dimension of spiritual individuality as such, then it must take on an individualized feature and establish an individualized relationship. From that very fact, a direct relationship is established between the divine world and this spiritual individuality, independently of the mediation of any earthly collectivity. So this relationship is unique, belongs to no one but you. And as we'll be talking about in future classes, Rabani Ra's been talking about this intimate dialogue, this process of prayer, and Ibn Arabi says that this process is a creative act, that prayer is a creative act, that prayer is, in the sense that it's been shared, prayer is the necessary setting or relationship from which this divine creative unfoldment is fulfilled through us, through this human divine relationship.
Okay.